Let us recapitulate. In their most basic form, stories have a beginning, middle and an end. And the narrative structure is such that you start with some established facts, you add something new and then you stir. And then you start all over again. Now, the trick by which you can combine these three elements into a meaningful and interesting piece of writing is to use some clever linking words, which not only glue together the words, but create a purpose or a tension and make the added things have interesting consequences. What are good linking words? Well, when establishing the facts, the most common word used is the word and. This and this and this. Scientists not trained in communicating their work commonly do like that. They just add up all the things they do without creating any tension or purpose. We had this and then we did this and then took that and did this one more time and found this and. The reader will quickly fall asleep. Sometimes researchers try to vary this simple stacking of facts by using synonyms such as also, besides, furthermore, likewise, moreover. But the effect will be all the same, a boring list of things. If you really want to create a narrative, you have to create some tension, some conflict, or at least some kind of purpose with the thing you add to all the established facts. This is done by emphasizing this added thing as something special. Maybe it is in opposition to what you already have said, or it is the cause of it, or a limitation to it, or the reason for it. Then you use words like but, however, rather, nevertheless, instead. Or when explaining, you use words like because, since, why, in order to. With these contradicting or explicating linking words, you create a tension which needs to be resolved. This can be done by concluding or by explaining the effects of putting the words together in the first place. The typical linking words for this third step would be therefore, consequently, hence, thus, meanwhile. Such concluding words are used as a linking device between ideas. They show logical relationships and are very forceful, so they should be used very sparingly. Often it's an advantage even to circumscribe them or just omit them and let the reader make the links herself. As an example, we can look at the first sentence of the lecture. I said the following. In my career as a science writer, I've learned that story dynamics and science writing don't mix easily. Stories thrive on simplicity and on recognizable events. Science is complex and unfamiliar. Combining science and storytelling often seems to require a trade-off between being interesting and being correct. But in science communication, you need to be both. There are a few techniques by which you can learn to be both interesting and correct. Most of the linking words here are only implicit in the text. They are not there literally, but they are still there. Let's try to find them. In my career as a science writer, I've learned that story dynamics and science writing don't mix easily because stories thrive on simplicity and on recognizable events, while science is complex and unfamiliar. Therefore, combining science and storytelling often seems to require a trade-off between being interesting and being correct. But in science communication, you need to be both. Meanwhile, there are a few techniques by which you can learn to be both interesting and correct. The general structure of the links is because, while, therefore, but, meanwhile, which is a repetition of giving a reason, creating tension and concluding. This works because it links the facts with causes and consequence, continuously carrying forward the argument. And remember, it's a good idea to omit the linking words as much as you can, because often they feel a bit clumsy when you read them out. It's better to let the automatic storytelling device in the reader's brain do it by itself. In the video with the South Park co-creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone, they reveal how they consciously and actively use certain linking words for creating their stories.
We've found out this really simple rule that maybe you guys have all heard before, but it took us a long time to learn it. But we can take these beats, which are basically the beats of your outline, and if the words "and then" belong between those beats, you're f***ed, basically. You got something pretty boring. What should happen between every beat that you've written down is either the word "therefore" or "but." Right? So what I'm saying is that you come up with an idea and it's like, okay, this happens, right? And then this happens. No. It should be this happens and therefore this happens. But this happens, therefore this happens. And that, as soon as we are able to, and literally sometimes we'll write it out to make sure we're doing it. We'll have our beats and we'll say, okay, this happened, but then this happens, and that affects this, and that does to that, and that's why you get a show that feels like, okay, this to that, to this to that, but this, here's the complication, to that.
Trey Parker explains what he does when he gets the draft of a week's episodes. He uses a simple replacement rule. What he tries to do is to replace uses of the word "and" with either "but" or "therefore." This enables him to build up an exciting story which involves both a conflict and a conclusion. The creators of South Park have received numerous accolades and awards since they started in 1997, and the series is included in various publications' lists of greatest television shows ever. So something must be working here, and it's probably not the rather simple stop-motion techniques they use for their animations. It is the quality of the manuscripts. Okay, back to Randy Olson. He used this video clip of the South Park creators to formulate a general template which he calls the ABT-template. ABT stands for and, but, therefore. There are other templates out there with a similar structure. For instance, Jessica Abel's so-called focus sentence and her XY story formula. But in effect, they all boil down to the simple idea of connecting the beats and sentences of a story with dynamic linking words. Every time you replace an "and" with a "but" or "therefore," Olson says, storytelling gets more interesting and more complex. So the ABT structure is the DNA of your story, so to speak. It turns up in every good narrative, in different disguises, with different linking words, and with different details attached to them. Let's have a look at some examples. So, why should I learn this ABT template? The answer could be, stories are fun and may seem complex, but they all have a similar structure. Therefore, they lend themselves to templates. Why should I read about a well-known virus? Chikungunya virus is a well-known and widespread virus in Africa, but it is spreading westward and therefore starts to become a problem in South and North America. Here is a cumbersome one from the IPCC report. Why should greenhouse gas emissions be reduced even more? The answer could be, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change has set their objectives of stabilizing greenhouse gases in the atmosphere at a level preventing dangerous anthropogenic interferences with the climate system. And Hansen argued for a limit of 1 degree Celsius global warming, which implies a maximum of CO2 concentration of 450 ppm. But paleoclimatic data and ongoing global changes indicate that slow climate feedback processes are not included in most climate models, which may begin to come into play on timescales of centuries or less. Therefore, our current analysis suggests that humanity must aim for an even lower level of greenhouse gases. Even the famous and very short Gettysburg Address by President Abraham Lincoln from 1863 has at its core an ABT structure. He starts with establishing some facts about the nation being conceived in liberty and where all men are created equal, but then he explains the but, the civil war that threatened to tear it all apart. Finally, he puts it all together by explaining that the war in reality was a struggle for the preservation of the Union and that the sacrifices given by the soldiers bring new birth of freedom and true equality to all of its citizens. Of course, when communicating science, it's a bit harder. You can't always tell a captivating blockbuster story about some newly discovered gut bacteria or a new type of quantum device. Generally, you need a strong foundation in real human experiences to tell a hero's journey. But you can tell an interesting story. Using strong metaphors and good analogies are very powerful. Using the ABT template in all your paragraphs and being conscious about the dynamics of your linking words will bring you a long way towards good science writing. The facts need to be there and they need to be correct, of course. But to quote the band Talking Heads, facts are never simple and straight. They come with points of view and never do what you want them to. So more often than not, telling a story might bring you and the reader closer to the truth than any list of facts ever would be able to. Thank you for watching. See you next time.